Good morning. How you doing? I'm going to talk to you this morning about a couple things. I'm going to reference a couple different previous recent videos. The one was the hobbies video. Right? Like, you need a hobby. Why hobbies are good for you, because I've been into this watch thing lately, that's going to be what this is going to be about mainly, is this Seiko, what they'll call the 55 Fathoms, what it's based on and all that. And we'll get to that when I get over to the shop. But while I'm driving there, I'll talk to you about a little bit of what I've learned about the history of dive watches. And kind of I don't know, I'm having this weird issue with watch review videos. And welcome to the Palooka Watch channel. Because I know I come off that way, and this is just who I am. And what I'm learning is that the watch channel people, I keep saying this, and I don't mean it as a derogatory term, but they're watch nerds. And they're not, I don't know, I haven't seen any of them yet that are the types of guys that are like blue collar dudes working with a watch, wearing a watch, or understanding. I mean, I know they understand it, they're smart people. But the idea of a tool watch is that it's a heavy duty watch made to perform a function and withstand the abuse in the environment with which that watch is intended to be used in. So that's why you see a hard Lex crystal on Seiko turtles and the Prospex divers, because it can scratch, but it's a lot less likely to shatter. And those watches are intended to be worn by people in a work environment where they're putting their watch in through abuse, whacking it. I've done it, where it could shatter. And at the same time, I think what's happening now is that we're being spoiled by all of these inexpensive homage watches and some original watches that are coming out of China that are better spec'd than traditional tool watches. And what I mean by that is they're reproducing pedestrians in this town. They're reproducing these vintage tool watches in a way where sometimes they're not speccing them to the original tool watch specs. They're making them nicer. So they're putting on a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, or they are putting a ceramic bezel insert in there. Clearly the movements are better than what they were back in the day, right? So when you can get a watch that looks similar to the tool watch it is homaging, and it comes with a sapphire crystal, and it comes with a ceramic bezel insert, and all kinds of kooky lume and everything, it's putting their minds in this weird place, like, oh, come on, they can afford to do it on these Chinese watches, why can't they afford to do it on this? When they're holding a watch that is almost exactly mimicking the original. And if you're a guy like me, especially where I come from in my mind with collecting and digging on stuff, I like to know the history of things, and I was in the service, and I like military stuff, and it's fascinating how military stuff has influenced fashion, right? So this guy's stupid. You got a guy on a bicycle that's just, I get up on a curb. If I can't get around people, I get up on a curb. And I go over the sidewalk. But we're not going to have that here. All right, we got a tow truck in the middle of the road. It's all good. It's your typical LA morning commute. So, as I was saying, the dive watch originally came about because the military needed it. A little brief history of what I can tell you off the top of my head. I didn't prepare for this. So Rolex had like the first waterproof watch. It wasn't waterproof to depth. I think like in the 1920s, a woman swam across the English Channel. She had a Rolex, this first waterproof watch around her neck. And then there was an Italian watchmaker in the 30s that came up with a design. I do think that the parts came from Rolex, but it was made for the Italian Navy, frogmen, which is a funny thing because I grew up believing that the Italian Army, Navy, whatever, in World War II was kind of a joke. No offense to you Italians out there. There's always that thing with the Greeks and the Italians, because the Italians take credit for a lot of things that the Greeks came up with. But the interesting thing there is that because there's a story in my family. My father's grandfather, during World War II, literally captured 3 Italians. They surrendered to him while he was taking a dump. True story. Italy could not take Greece. That was their job. Hitler gave Mussolini the job of taking Greece. They woefully failed because the Greeks were tough, man. It was a guerrilla fighting, and my family was a big part of that up there in the north in the mountains. And yeah, so it was. I heard this story a dozen times as a kid. Like, he went to go take a poop, and he sat down. He's got his rifle next to him, leaning up against a tree. And as he's pooping, he makes this noise. There was 3 Italians behind his bush, a few feet away. They dropped their rifles and started surrendering while he's got his pants down around his ankles. He had to grab his rifle, and they were like, "No, it's okay." Like, they let him finish his poop and everything. he brought him back. So that's the story I grew up with. And the truth is, as we know, if you know history, Hitler had to divert a lot of the German force to Greece. It was important. Greece is important. There's thousands of islands in the Aegean Sea. And that was a way that the Allies could have came in and gotten to them. You've seen The Guns of Navarone, maybe? Great flick. I recommend it. I want to let you in, but I don't know what to tell you. So, anyhow, Greece actually helped shorten the war. True story. Let's get back to the military and military stuff. So what's interesting is the way military has influenced fashion throughout history. You see today, you walk around, there's camouflage everywhere. You see me wearing it. I wear the camouflage trousers all the time, and I cut them off in the shorts because they're cheap. I can go to the swap meet and buy a set of camis for $20, cut them off. They're comfortable, they wear well. When they wear out, I can throw them out, get another pair. But the whole thing, even with pants, men walked around in like togas and kilts and skirts basically for a long, long time. But it was once we domesticated the horse and then started using a horse in the military, right, cavalry, they had to come up with leggings or pants so you don't chafe the inside of your legs. That's where pants came around. So when men started wearing pants to walk around in, it was because they wanted to look tough. They wanted to look like they were in the military. It's just a thing. So fast forward to where we're at now with the whole watch thing. Before dive watches were being manufactured for the purposes they were intended to be used for, watches were tiny, very small, 36 millimeter, 38 millimeter cases, the diameter of the case. If I wear that, it looks like I'm wearing a lady's watch. I never thought I had a big wrist before, and I don't know that I do, but it's a 7 5/8 inch wrist. Even a 40 millimeter watch on me looks tiny. The watches always look bigger on screen on the wrist. This is about a 42 millimeter. That's about the smallest I want to wear. So dive watches, in the beginning, I think there was some at 39, but they pretty much went to 40 and larger. There were some pretty large ones even going back in the day there. And then, of course, they had the bezel so you could time how long you're under the water. And if a dude was seen wearing that watch out, it was going to make a visual impact to people. So dive watches also in the very beginning. So you had the Frogman from Italy with this watch, and I forget, it's not, I want to say Panini, but the guy didn't make paninis. He made friggin' watches. Forgive me. So anyhow, he made that, and then in the actually during the war, the U.S. Navy started testing watches. They tested the Rolex Submariner, and they tested others. But this Blancpain watch, which is really cool, really won out. And I think they kind of perfected that watch by like 1952. And that's what I'm interested in right now, because this watch right here, this Seiko, what they call the 55 Fathoms, the Blancpain was the 50 Fathoms. They call this the 55 because it's a Seiko 5. Makes sense, right? I didn't know any of this. I didn't buy this watch because of what it is. I bought it because I stumbled upon it. Visually, it blew my mind. This is my favorite watch right now. And, okay, what's going on here? More LA craziness, man. That's just nuts. So I stumbled upon this watch, and as I started looking at more of them, I started seeing these 55 Fathom homages. And then I started looking into the history of the dive watch and learned about the Blancpain. And then there was an interesting thing that happened during the war there, where America could only use American-made products. So they made this something Raveneck. I want to say Tissot. It's not Tissot. Torvik Raveneck or something. I forget, but these guys came together and they created this watch, which really came from Europe, but they made it seem like it was an American brand so that it could be used by the Navy UDD teams, Frogmen, before the Navy SEALs. So I'm bringing all this up because I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm watching these watch reviews, and it's crazy, man, because they're in the reviews, they're knocking the details of the watch that make it what it is. Let's get into this a little bit more here. Hang on. All right. We're back. Welcome back to the Palooka Watch Channel. I got a funny idea for a logo for that. Anyhow, as I was saying, I'm watching these watch videos by these guys, and they're talking about all the details, and they've done this way more than I have. They know way more than I do about watches across the board. I'm just learning this. But I'm a tool guy. Like, I literally use tools for a living. I mean, I designed and had this apron made. I'm like that. I've made my own tools for specific reasons, to get the job done. I've always been in tough environments. I went through 2 G-shocks when I was in the Marines. It's, you know, I've been beating up watches for a long time. So I stopped wearing a watch when I got the cell phone 20 years ago, and I'm just now getting back into it. And I started with a Seiko Turtle. And then I learned, this is all about the military stuff and watch reviews here, but I learned that the Seiko Turtle was based on, well, I learned the history of Seiko, right? The 62 Mas, and then the Willard that we call it because of Apocalypse Now. And I got really into those watches, and I started buying them, and I started buying the homages, and I started learning the details more. And, I mean, the original had a domed crystal and all that. And we'll get into the details of the watch in a minute, but I really went down the rabbit hole on that. And I eventually bought the new Seiko reissue of the Captain Willard, the 6105, in the green. So I'm happy with that. There's a couple of homages that are closer to the original that I'm still interested in. Rudune makes one, and speaking of Rudune, they make a copy of, an homage to this Tormik, Raveneck, or whatever it is. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong. Which is really the American version of the 50 Fathoms, the Blancpain 50 Fathoms watch, which this is kind of based upon. So we're coming full circle here. I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it back. You'll see those watches, by the way. They're pretty plain. They're about a 40 to 42 millimeter case, depending on who's making them. And they're beautiful because they're so simple. And you'll see that on the bottom of the dial, some of them will have a circle there. So the story is, gosh, every time I want to say the Italian version of that, I want to say Panini, but it's Panera, I think. Not like Panera Bread. I'm screwing that up. Boy, am I screwing that up. Panerai. I think that's what it is, Panerai. I knew it would come to me eventually. It's the Palooka Watch Channel. So the funny thing is, not funny at all, is that the loom was made, I think it was like barium and radium. I think when they mix, it glows. And the poor ladies that were using these little paint brushes to paint the loom on the dials, they would clean or lick the brush. I don't think it worked out too well for them. So eventually they came up with another chemical concoction that would produce loom when hit by light. And what happened was to reassure people, to make them feel better, they started putting a little circle underneath the center, right above the 6 on the dials, that had the radiation symbol. And it would say non-radiation to make you feel good about it. And then that switched to another thing with a circle that had a line going through it. It had 2 different colors, either orange and cream, or you'll see like a sky blue and a white. And that's a moisture meter, basically. So if you're diving, we'll talk about some dive watch features that are very specific to a true dive watch. But if you're diving, if water got into the case, the colors that whatever those things were made out of would react and change color. So if you're underwater and you're looking at your watch and you notice that circle looks different now, you know you can't trust your watch anymore because water has gotten into it. Another couple just interesting facts and features, details about like a true dive watch. It's nice to have a loomed second hand because you can glance at your watch for a couple seconds and you can tell that it's actually working. And then the other thing, it's nice when the minute hand minute hands on analog watches are always longer than your hour hand. So you want that. But you also want something else to make it more noticeable. Maybe a much fatter, or have some gradations or something, or bars going across the loom. So when it's loomed, and I suppose you'd have a light down there, so you can hit your watch with a light for a couple seconds so that then you can read it. I've got one of those here. Hang on a second. Don't go away. Oh, it's magic. I went to Harbor Freight yesterday to get some... this thing is bright, man. It's like 1,800 lumens. I only bought it so I could do this. But, yeah, you'll see that loom there. Anyhow, hit that real quick. You can read the time. So it's nice if the the minute hand's a little bit more pronounced as well. And you don't really need a day-date feature on a traditional, like a real dive watch. But that's where we're at today, man. They were tough. Tough guys wore them. You had to be a tough guy to do that job. And people want to look like tough guys, so people start walking around wearing dive watches. Secondly, to get you away from just the fashion reasons for it, there is just the fact that if you work for a living in an environment where you're going to be whacking things, you guys saw the condition. I wish I would have brought it with me, of that turtle that I got from my buddy Chad. It's all beat up, scratched up, dinged, and everything else. He wore that every day in a shop for about 5 years, in a machine shop, beating the piss out of it. It still works. So, yeah, that's why you want that. The domed crystal is interesting. I believe, and I haven't heard anybody say this, I don't think, in any video. Maybe they have, I don't know. But when you see the old watches, the extreme domed versions of those crystals are designed so that they won't break under pressure. A dome is stronger than a flat, you know. So, but of course, a dome crystal on land is more likely to hit something and get banged up. And these days, You don't really even need a dome crystal at all on a dive watch because the technology is so much better with the way they seal the watches and everything else. And you guys, I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably already watched videos on all this stuff. You know way more than I do, and you're already making fun of me, and you're going to make some negative comment in the bottom, and that's fun for me because then I can do a whole video about you and your comment. Anyhow, this is a Barton leather strap here. It is a Horween leather rally quick release watch band. I'm going to quickly put the original band that came on this watch on it and show you what it looked like. And then we're going to swap out a couple different bands on this watch. I'm going to give you a little fashion show here. Just want to put, this is the strap that came on this watch when I bought it. It was a lot lighter. I put some Neats oil on it. And I swapped out that giant buckle. I bought some cheap watches for like $1, and just because I wanted the bands at a swap meet like a month ago. And I took all the buckles off, and I had this nice one here that worked great with this leather. And it gave me a little bit of extra room, so it's more comfortable on the wrist. But it's still somebody else's band. I love the way that this looks. I think it looks good with a leather band. So I decided, just to remember, it's about a 42mm case on a 7 5/8" wrist. I like the look of this a lot, but it was, I don't know, it was something weird, I suppose, about it being somebody else's leather band. So I bought a couple bands. Now we're going to do like a band fashion show. But I guess I'll start off with changing out a band here. Let's make this a little bit closer. Try to do this on the table for you here. Okay, so let's see if I can do this for you on camera. Gotta put my readers on now that I'm getting old. And this watch does not have drilled lugs. A lot of Seikos, a lot of high-end or quality tool watches, and a lot of other watches these days, you'll see a hole coming out of this lug right here, and that makes it so you can poke this tool through the hole to release the spring bars. If you don't have that, you get yourself one of these tools here that's got the poker on one end. It's got this kooky little hook thing on the other end here. And that there is designed so you can hit the little there's a little like a shelf on that spring bar right there. That's even bent. These are the bars that came with it. So that little hook will catch on here and make it so you can push that in. Simple as that. I've used a butter knife in the past. I've used all sorts of things. I hear people talking about how they hook themselves or poke themselves. I don't know how you do that. Just be smart about it. Understanding how it works is the number one thing here. So that's all you're doing is you're getting a little friction on there. If you can get it to hit that ledge there, it'll be easier for you. The neat thing is with these new bands, we've got a Barton watch strap here. Comes in a neato box. This is the Rally strap, and the neat thing about this is these come with the spring bars built into them. So you just have to use your thumbnail if you have one, which is another weird thing. Boy, the condition of the hands of some people in these watch videos, huh? You'll notice that this band is a little bit lighter here. I'm going to give you a little tip about treating your leather, and it's going to sound gross, but we'll get into that. So your short part of your strap typically should go at the 12 o'clock. All right. Put my readers on again. And you just, feed this into the little hole here. I hope you guys can see all this on screen. There's a little hole right here. Get that in there and then lay this. I like to lay this right up on top. Use my fingernail here and pull down. And you'll get that to go in there. This might not all be perfect on camera because I'm turning my wrist a funny way, but there we have it. It's locked in. Hope you guys are seeing all this. And that's in. So you can see how beautiful this strap is. Yeah, it looks great on the wrist. Don't want to lose the spring bars for the old strap. Got my high-end old t-shirt here, my watch rag. So yeah, I'm digging the look of that. Really digging the look. Now, the reason it's lighter here and it's darker here, and this is, like I was going to say, it sounds a little gross to some people. There's a little trick when you are out in the field. Let's say you want to do a friction fire like a bow drill. Well, what you'll do is you'll use what they call nose grease, which is just you get your body sweats and whatnot, and there's grease on your face, man. Like, you know, above your nostrils, where your nose meets your cheek, behind your ears, wherever. And you can get that on the stick, and you can put that on the friction block, and it helps that friction block spin easier. Well, it also helps treat leather. I mean, in the old days, they used whale fat and all sorts of things. So, yeah, the human body, the grease is off your body. You apply it to the leather, and it'll help treat it. I know that sounds gross to a lot of people, but that's just how it is. And this is already getting pretty supple. I'm going to put this on for a moment. I really hope all that was on camera because I couldn't see. But I love the look of this band. Thing is it's not the only band I bought. I also bought this one. Let's try this one out. I'll keep you out here on a wider angle for this to be sure I can capture something. I'll review this. If it's terrible, I'll just redo it. You know, I'm not Joe Pro here, as we all know. So the beauty of this is taking this off now. Just fingernail, boom. Fingernail, boom. That's just so amazing. I can't believe it. So happy they did this. So let's try this black one right quick. I think I'm going to stick with the brown, but so I'll push this in to get that to stick out a little bit more so I can feed it into the hole easier, and then just pull down on this. And she's in there. It's that simple, that fast, that easy. Guess it works better with my right hand. Trying to give you a different angle. I mean, it's so easy, you don't even know it's in there, but there it is on the black strap. Put that on and see what it looks like. You didn't know you were going to get a fashion show, did you? This looks pretty good. This one's got to, you know, obviously soften up a bit. Boy, that does look good on the black too. I knew it was a good idea. Yeah, so as I was saying, let's tip this camera up a bit. Yeah, so as I was saying, I'm digging on this, and I'm digging on these watches, and it's you know, I've got this collector kind of mindset. I like having the original of things. You saw with the Bowie knives, you know, I really wanted that World War II jungle Bowie or the Raider Bowie that the Marines carried, so I found an original eventually. I stumbled upon this. I got this for $86, this watch. We know it's got some scratches on the lens, but it's working great. I've been wearing it every day since I got it. I'm gonna put the brown. I really, boy, it does. It looks good on the black too, man. It just. I'm gonna go ahead and put the brown one on as I continue to blather here. I'm in this weird spot in my mind where I'm looking at more of these. I feel like I want another one in a way, and I like the idea of a black day date wheel, and they're out there, but they're all around $200 or more. People are asking some pretty crazy numbers for this watch. And I thought, well, if I found one, I could mod it. You know, I could put one of these 55 fathom dials on it or something. But I think I'm deciding against it. I think I'm going to keep this as it is. And if I was to pick up another one, it would be just as a backup to this. I think this is my watch. I bought 19 watches. It's embarrassing to say that out loud. Now, I got great deals on most of them. I mean, I didn't pay retail on any of them, actually. I didn't buy any of them new, I don't think. I bought an Aragon that was new, maybe 2 of them. But I got them at such great discounts, it was crazy. But I don't even know. I'll probably end up selling them. I might end up selling a lot of them. Because to me, this is all I want. Isn't it crazy? I literally had to handle all these different watches to find this one and get into it, to find out that this is what I really dig on. And this is not the toughest watch. Now, having said all that, I kind of want either a copy or a really good version. Maybe the Blancpain watches are out there, the 50 Fathoms. You can buy them now, but they're $10,000, $15,000. It's crazy. Steinmart, I think. They make a version that's pretty nice, and they're a Swiss-made company. They make some pretty good, tough watches. The Redune copy is an option. The Steel Dive is always an option. Steel Dive is hard to beat, man. I mean, their watches are so well made, so well spec'd. It's just that with their logo and everything, which I like. I think it's a cool logo, but if I was to sell a bunch of my watches for what I got for them, which would be easy, I think, because I didn't pay a lot for them, or even market value, or make a few bucks on them, I could then buy like an original watch in the $500 to $800 range and just have just a few watches and have that one really well made, well spec'd original tool watch, because I like the idea of having that original and wearing that from time to time as a conversation piece. But for the everyday, I think this is going to be fine for me. Put this on here. I got to get back to work. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and a pile of wood over here I got to get into. So, anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't know if you're really going to get a lot out of it. I know that the watch people will probably tear me apart. I've been getting some interesting comments. I like the comments I get from you guys that know more than I do, because you're having fun with me. You know that I'm not taking this stuff that seriously. And, you know, some guy made a comment, keeping it real. I think that was about the Seiko 5 logo. I prefer the Superman badge that they have here to the that squished down 5 that looks like a kooky S. I will never own one of those watches. I think it's hideous. I think what Seiko did with that new logo is atrocious. And I think it's hurting their sales. It's not really hurting their sales that much. The people that don't know the difference, the young people, they've never even seen the 5 in the Shield before. They're buying the watch. The watch looks cool. It totally eludes them. Maybe it's more in line with design and fashion that they dig on today. I understand that. But I think even them, if they were to pick up the new Seiko with that logo and held an older version, a mint condition one, with the Seiko 5 in the badge, in the shield, the Superman shield, that's what they would gravitate towards, you know, if they still had that option. But yeah. So I reviewed the first part of this video before I started the second part, where I sat down at the bench here and I pretty much covered everything I wanted to say. And I didn't know I was going to get into the discussion about, I never know where I'm going to go in these videos. I just start talking. I know what I want to talk about, and I go off on all these tangents. But the idea that military clothing gear, all, which is the clothes too, all the gear, the hat. I get asked about this hat all the time. I did a whole fashion video where I said it's my first fashion video. I talk about the hat, where you can get it, what it's all about. It's a 1943 reproduction, and but it just goes to show you that, as I've pointed out here before or earlier, I'm reiterating, military gear is tough stuff, man. And tough does tend to look cool. You don't have to overdo it. Keep it what it is. And if you're going to do a watch review on a tool watch, in particular a watch that was made for military use, dive watch for diving and heavy duty dive use, you can't knock the fact that it has an acrylic or mineral crystal or hardlex, if you're talking Seiko. You can't knock that, because those are designed to do what they do. They can take impact without shattering. That's why it's there. It seems like everybody, all these watch guys are reviewing watches from the perspective of fashion and not so much performance. You know, I got into this discussion. It's going to be a long video, man. I got into a discussion the other day with a guy. I think he's pissed off. He's a writer-director out here in Hollywood. He's done a lot of stuff. And he's upset with me right now, I'm pretty sure, because I told him I'm pretty sure I could have kicked the shit out of Sean Connery. Not that I don't like Sean Connery. I love Sean Connery. Who doesn't like Sean Connery? The guy was awesome. He was in the Army. I'm not saying he's a puss. I'm just saying. I mean, I know I'm stronger than he is. And I know what I'm doing. And he was an actor. And I know he was in the Army. But, you know, he was like 6 feet tall or something. Maybe he had a 42-inch. I've had a 48-inch chest since I was 20 years old. I know how to handle myself. It wasn't a dig at that, but it was a discussion that started because of the watches. So first, he doesn't know what he's talking about because he hasn't put the time in. So I'm trying to help him, and I'm showing him, like, you don't have to buy a Rolex Submariner. You don't have to spend $10,000, $15,000 or whatever on this watch. Wait a second here. Sorry for the interruption. So as I was saying, actually, I lost my train of thought now. Oh, James Bond and the watches. So I said, look, dude, there's all these companies right now that are making watches that look a lot like the Rolex Submariner. And they're tough, man. They're heavy-duty, tough watches with workhorse movements. So why spend that money on something that... And also, they need to be serviced. And the Omega, it's the same thing. I hang out at a watch shop now. It's 2 blocks from where I live. And this guy, Mike, is in there. And he's Armenian. I forget the country. Budapest? No, that's Hungary. I forget where he's from in Europe. But he grew up as a watchmaker. And he's a known dude. And he works on Rolex and Omegas, and he's a watchmaker. That's all I need to say. And I go in there a lot, and he gives me a lot of knowledge. He gives me free stuff all the time, and he's taken the watch off my wrist and regulated it for me right there in a couple minutes. It's friggin' mind-boggling. It's so cool. And he enjoys talking to me. He reminds me of my dad. I mean, we're pretty close to the same age. I think he's got 3 or 4 years on me. But when I'm talking to him and I'm looking at him, he just reminds me a lot of my old man. The accent, not the same accent, but he's got the accent, and he's got the look and the style and all that, just like my old man. And if my dad heard me call him the old man, he'd walk up to me right now and smack me in the side of the head. But Mike's cool. I'm learning a lot there. And I was in there the other day, and a guy came in with a couple of Omegas he was picking up. This one Omega, I think it was $900 to have worked on. It needed a new mainspring. And I've overheard these conversations with Mike and other people and friends of mine who own Omegas and own Rolexes, and the servicing costs. And those Omegas, they tend to need servicing pretty frequently. Why would you do that? I get it. You got the money, the cachet, wearing an Omega and all that. There's so many watches that look almost exactly like it that you could beat the piss out of. And to me, that makes more sense. But I understand. But that's where this conversation went. And the interesting thing, if you don't know, because I never thought about it too much, I'm not a 007 nerd either, right? I enjoyed the earlier movies, but once Timothy Dalton came along, like I just stopped watching all of them. I don't think I've watched a new. Well, I did. I watched the one with the new guy. I don't remember his name. Daniel Craig. I think I watched one of his, but that's about it. So the thing about Bond was I think he was a commander in the Navy, so he was wearing these watches. I don't remember all the watches he was wearing, but I watched a great video the other day that I sent to this dude who's upset with me because he was talking out of both sides of his head back just because he didn't know what he was talking about. Not that I know everything. I don't. I'm still learning. But I sent him this great video because it talked about the original movie, what he's wearing, the band it's on, and the progression of the watches right up to the digital age through Roger Moore, and then back to the Omegas that Daniel Craig is wearing. And I think that that's an interesting video. There's something more than that one out there. You guys can look this stuff up. But this whole thing is all because it started with getting back into a watch, having the Seiko Turtle, learning about the 1970 Willard, going down the rabbit hole on that, understanding dive watches, their origin, the history of it, knowing that the Navy needed them for what they were doing in World War II and beyond, and the historical progression of the details. It's so much fun, and I want to wear those style watches because it gives me something to talk about or look at or think about. And when I meet new people, I get a chance to talk about this stuff, and it's fun. If you meet a perfect stranger and you don't have anything to talk about and you're wearing a watch, boom. People don't smoke as much as they used to in the old days. In the old days, you bum a cigarette from somebody and then you start up a conversation. Anyhow, I'm rambling. That's it for now. You guys have a great day. I hope you dig on this. I mean, I don't see how you can't. It's just a badass looking watch, right? Have a good day. Be kind to one another. I hope you get something cool out of this. I'm digging on this, man. And that's it for now. Bye.